into the 2026 Pigskin Preview as we preview all of our local schools in the Greeneville and Greene County area for high school football coming up. Why is high school football so exciting at this time of the year? We haven't had sports in a little bit as far as the high schools are concerned. It's a big reason. Also, it's some of the biggest teams, the most players, the most friends who are on those teams. So the excitement level is there for high school football. Brian Stayton with Matthew Palazzo as we will go through all of these schools. But not too long ago, you were doing this, right? So as a high school athlete, going through the summer and preparing for the opening camps through the heat of August, what is the excitement level right now for these players?
Oh, it's through the roof. I mean, it truly is the lifeblood of these communities. And for these kids, it's the highest points of their high school athletic careers. And that's certainly something to get behind, something to get excited about. Especially when you got everything combined with the start of school, the jamboree, everything culminates to week one. I think it's just such a beautiful thing, especially around this area.
Right, why are we sitting here? We're going to preview all of these schools. We are also going to be doing this through Greene Sports Zone, greenesportszone.com. Yes, you can follow this through the YouTube or Facebook Live apps and all of the socials that we have. We're going to break down each and every one of these schools and bring you some coaching reaction, some player reaction. This is, I think, the preview that most people are going to want to look at to figure out what does my team have this year, and I think that's what the excitement level is. So much more that we're going to break down with each and one of these schools.
It's all encompassing, your one-stop shop for everything. Anywhere you need to find some information on these teams, this is your place to be. So whether it's Greeneville, Chuckey-Doak, North Greene, South Greene, West Greene, we got you covered right here.
We'll get it for you, and that's when we continue with our Pigskin Preview for 2026.
Life can be a lot sometimes, but at Holston Medical Group, our primary care providers are here through it all, whether it be a routine checkup or something unexpected. Because at HMG, we're here for you through every stage of life with the best primary care and support. Whether it's you or the people you love most, choose a primary care provider you can rely on. Choose HMG, your health partner for life. Now accepting new patients.
Hey, we welcome you back into the First Horizon Greene Sports Zone and the 2026 Pigskin Preview. I'm Brian Stayton with Matthew Palazzo. The Chuckey-Doak Black Knights, looking to come off of a season where they finished fifth in the region from a year ago, have fourth-year head coach Billy Kaler and a lot of promise for this team. The reason for that is because they've had a lot of youth over the last couple of years. When you have youth and you continue to play that youth, now that youth is expected to be more veteran, and that's what I think Billy's looking for this year.
Absolutely, and he's talked about it the last 2 years, really. This has been a year in 2026 where I think he's kind of had in his mind this is a team looking to get back in the playoffs for the first time in over 2 seasons, and Coach Kaler has dealt with those lumps and those bruises with playing that young squad, but like you just said, you look up and here they are, and there's those freshmen and sophomores that took those lumps are now juniors and seniors ready to contribute. I think that's going to be a big theme, especially for this Chuckey-Doak team that we saw take a couple of beatings last year, but my goodness, they're going to turn the corner a big way this year, and you're going to look to that and kind of the letdowns of seasons gone by as kind of a reason that they're as good as they could be in 2026.
You know, the issue with Chuckey-Doak is that you've got the state runner-up in the same region with you. I mean, you have some depth. You have Unicoi County, I think, that's going to be back. But also competitive nature. They were competitive right till week 9 last year, and really going into week 10, they had a chance to be there. The problem was they were playing Gatlinburg-Pittman. A little bit more veteran, maybe a little bit more geared toward playing a Gatlinburg-Pittman team. Having them in Lower Afton will help. this is one of the toughest regions in the state.
Absolutely. And a runner-up team like Pittman that doesn't really lose a whole lot. They're going to be back to where they were a season ago. Unicoi going to be good as always. And Coach Kaler has kind of, echoed this. At really 3 through 6 in the region, there's not too much that separates them. And so if you're wanting to get back in the playoffs, it's certainly doable. I think even a host playoff game is absolutely doable. It's what you did back in 2023. You'd have to knock off a Unicoi County, and it's something we talked about with Coach as well. It's just something you got to do at the end of the season. You got to play those tougher opponents at the end of your schedule. Just the nature of this Chuckey-Doak schedule, as you see on your screen here, you've got your Unicoi counties, your Gatlinburg, Pittman kind of backloaded. That makes it a little bit more difficult, especially to string something together late.
It's going to be a really tough region. I think, until the teams change, we're going to have a tough region no matter what. There's a bunch of good football teams here.
The most experienced quarterback coming back in Greeneville and Greene County is Kipton Ball. And I know that there's probably a lot that's going to be on his shoulders, and rightfully so. He loses 2 of the best receivers that I think Chuckey-Doak had last year, the 2 best that Chuckey-Doak had last year. He does have experience in the backfield, but what is expected from Kipton, I think, this year?
I think a whole lot's expected from him. Coach Kaler already talked about it. He's a junior already with 18 or 19 starts under his belt. He's the only returning quarterback in the county or the city for that matter. And you've got a lot of depth in that quarterback room now. Adding Brody Myers, calling his name a little bit later on, but a lot going to be expected from Kipton. As a leader, not so much as a passer, because you got such a big running back room.
His understanding of what we do is really good. His leadership, his patience, those things, it's really helpful. He's going to be a real big asset to us offensively, obviously, having all the experience there.
It is a huge running back room. You got 2 of the top returners from last year's team coming back in. But to me, though, the issue is, how is this offensive line going to do? Will Kipton have that time to survey? Will he have that time to run whatever type of offense? And I think that is a strength for this team.
Yeah, I spoke with Coach Kaler about it. This Chuckey-Doak offensive line specifically, the most exciting part of this team for me. You return so much from a season ago. You lose 2 of your starters, but you just return so much. You return your 2 tackles. You return a couple of young guys in that interior who are going to do really well for you, and I think you're going to play some really big roles this season. So that offensive and defensive line, really the trenches, they've played well this summer, and to nobody's surprise, really, they're kind of the reason a lot of people are circling this run game, this offense as really a part of this team to watch for coming into the season.
Well, Connor Hall has had a fantastic offseason, as well as Caleb Stamper and Sammy Johnson. All 3 of those guys are returners who had fantastic off seasons, and I've seen them step up into leadership roles more.
Running back room, Marcus Britt, I was very impressed with him. Mm-hmm. Braden was very impressed with him. And I think a little bit more for Braden for me was on the other side of the football. But how impactful can they be to help a Kipton Ball this year and being able to run the ball?
I think Braden Green is going to have another all-county type of season. Marcus Britt as well. Kind of flip-flop from you, though. I like Marcus Britt more as a linebacker, and then Braden more as a running back. I think the key for them is just staying healthy. The nature of the game in 3A football, you're going to have guys playing both ways. We're going to talk about it throughout our program, but getting those guys healthy, they're going to play both ways, making sure they can play 10, 11 games for you in a season. I think that's really the MO for this ball club coming into 26.
I think a strength defensively is what we've been talking about is those linebackers. Let's start with the guys up front on that defensive line, though. They do return some very good and experienced players there.
Yeah, Lance Turner Armstrong going to make another year in the trenches. You got Spencer Nunley, Sean Rayon, Colt Shull. Think of those 4 names. They're going to be a really big impact in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. And speaking with Coach Kaler too, he really likes what he has returning in his box, in his front 7. Of course, combine that with Britt and Green at linebacker. Some younger guys coming into the fold as well, like Parkey. This front 7 for Chuckey-Doak is going to be pretty formidable. I think it's going to fare pretty well, especially in Region 1 3A.
Certainly hurts to lose a player like Estella, no questions asked, and Parker McMurray too. But we've had guys step up and really fill those roles, and been pretty happy with how they played. Colt Shull played a ton probably was the unsung hero of the front 7 last year as a freshman. Really, really good nose tackle, has come in, had a really good offseason, so much stronger, and is playing really good football.
Definitely some of the strengths for this team this year, no question about it. Mentioned some of the guys that they only lost 5 seniors. They only graduated 5, but really 7 guys that they lost. They had lost a couple of guys with some transfer, and I think that will take a little while to recover from that, especially early. We're going to get into the schedule coming up here. Hopefully by the end of that, it'll be fine. The question is receiver. who is going to step up into that role. Kipton was very accurate last year and was very mobile and would get out and could find those open receivers, especially Honlin, especially Atchison. But who is that guy that this year he's going to have to rely on?
I think that's the biggest question for me coming forward. You lose your leader in single season receptions in school history, Dom Atchison. You lose Dom Honlin, who was second on your team in receptions as well. You're going to have to rely on a stable of younger guys who might not have that varsity experience. They're going to have to be thrust on the big stage coming week one. I mean, you're going to rely a lot from your tight end as well, which is why I think Brody Myers is such a key contributor in his rookie campaign. But some names to keep an eye out on the receiver front. You've got Skylar Davis, who returns, was pleased with him last year. He's still an underclassman. You've got Kobe Love and Mason Henderson, who took last year off, but they all figure to be in that stable rotation of pass catchers. They've got 3 or 4 guys to keep an eye out. Braxton Lowe as well, the slot receiver. So it's going to be spread out a lot more than it was last season when you were going for Atchison more often than not. So it's going to be something to watch, but definitely the biggest question on this offense.
It was the games that I was able to do and see and experience and the things with Barry, who was so excited to be ready for high school football, is Chuckey-Doak was great defensively, first and second down. You get them in a third and long, and they give up a third down and long in the secondary. And it was inexperienced at the time. Is the secondary ready for that challenge on passing downs?
And that's the thing too. On defense, you talk about your perimeter guys, it has to be ready when you're playing teams like Gatlinburg, Pittman, and Unicoi County. It's a pass-happy league at the top, and you're going to have these defensive backs come up and make tackles. That's really the biggest thing about it, Brian. I think you talk about your third down success. Tackling has to be your part of the game where you improve the most on, because it's something that last season kind of struggled in, and then allowed those big touchdown plays from Gatlinburg or Unicoi County.
It is a product too, where it may be a good problem or a bad problem. Is there too much talent to run or catch or receive or tackle or sack? What is it for this team? Is it a too many mouths to feed type of a protocol?
Well, Coach Kaler certainly echoed that himself.
A lot of guys splitting not as much touches probably as we'd want with 4 backs. So it's going to be hard to make sure all those guys get what they need to help our offense.
I tend not to think so. I think Braden Green and Marcus Britt are your 2-man tandem, your bell cow back, so to speak. But I think he's talked about guys like Parkey coming in, guys like Zayden Shockey, a rookie as well, coming in, going to get some more of those touches. But you go back to that question, are they going to stay healthy? I think that's important, Brian, because you look at teams with depth, they're able to stay more healthy than teams that don't have that depth. I think it's not a bad problem to have this season in particular, because it's a good problem. You can give guys like Shockey and Parkey some touches, give guys like Green and Britt some rest.
No question about it for Chuckey-Doak. Their season last year, they got off to a great start on the year, scored a lot of points early, and opened the season at 3-0. It's the back half of their schedule where they played a little bit more of the strength of their region, which again is going to be an extremely tough region when you talk about closing out with Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg Pittman. Started out 3-0 last year. There's really no reason as to say why they couldn't be competitive and do that again this year. But I think getting off to a good start this year is more important for them than it was even last year.
It's absolutely pivotal. And you look at that top end of the schedule, very similar. It's actually the exact same as last year. You just flip home and away sites. I think you circle that September 11th game at Unicoi County as a really big litmus test, right? What does this team look like compared to last season? We saw them last season get their doors blown off of by Unicoi County. Can you improve, especially at an environment as tough as Gentry Stadium? I think the swing game for me, Brian, though, the most important part of their schedule, September 25th at Johnson County. That's another really tough place to play, a key region game. It's a tough bus ride to get up there as well. Circle that game, because I think that's one, if you win, you got a really good chance of getting in that playoff as a 3 or 4 seed. If you lose, you're kind of, on the outside looking in. Really need that Johnson County game to go right.
All the county schools, part of their non-conference setup this year, as mentioned, and you've got Sullivan East also in the mix there, and Volunteer as your non-conference teams, and none of your county teams are regional opponents this year. They open up with North Greene, and a little bit of a new look for the North Greene Huskies, obviously, and the Chuckey-Doak Black Knights will be doing that on the road in Bellarton. They want to get off to a great start. That's their first game of the year.
Yeah, and it's big. It's our Bachman Bernard Game of the Week presented by Tommy's Plumbing as well. So we'll have that broadcasted right here on First Horizon Green Sports Zone. But yeah, that's a big one to get started with because you see last year, a little bit more favorable of a draw. You had that game at home. This time, you're on the road. You're in Baileyton, a new look Huskies team. Can you build some confidence there in those first couple weeks? You started off with the big 3-0 stretch last year. You'd expect that you do the same thing if you're hoping for a season like Coach Kaler and co. expects, but you got to start 1-0. And again, on the road in the Tundra, it's going to be a tough place to play week 1.
It always will be, and we'll be there for that as well. That has been our Chuckey-Doak Pigskin Preview for 2026. I'm Brian Stayton. He's Matthew Palazzo. We're back with more from Green Sports Zone.
At Marathon Quick Stop Markets, you'll find a company that realizes that our customers are our biggest assets. We are a locally owned company, proud to serve our community. So we do everything with you in mind. We clean and sanitize our stores, provide a well-lit, monitored area to keep you and your family safe. You can always expect a friendly staff and a large selection of products with weekly specials. Stop in at a nearby Marathon Quick Stop Market today.
Family owned, community loved. More than ink and paper, it's precision, performance, and pride in every project. Always on time, expertly equipped, locally owned. And something new is on the way. Ready for your next big project? Artistic Printers, where quality meets creativity.
Welcome back into the 2026 Pigskin Preview from Green Sports Zone. I'm Brian Stayton. He's Matthew Palazzo. The Greeneville Greene Devils, year in and year out, #1 in the region. That is not necessarily something that they feel is an easy thing to do each and every year. There's something about their culture that they do have. It's always a tough region, and it's going to be even tougher, I think, this year for this Greene Devil team that graduated so much from last year.
Absolutely. Anytime you take a look at an 8-team region and 7 region games on your schedule, it's going to ask a lot from a team. It asked a lot from them last year, especially, Brian, in a region like Region 1 4A that got as better as they did last season. Some newer opponents like Seymour and Northview Academy, they looked a whole lot better than they have in years past. It's certainly going to be a storyline for us here in this Greeneville Greene Devils 2026 season.
You know, here's the team trying to get back into a Final Four, back into a state championship. Was it chasing title number 5? This is the team that the regional crown is there. I think Elizabethton has some things to say about that. There's a couple of Cherokees, a much improved team, and Volunteers, a much improved team. Those Hawkins County teams, although it's a kind of a battle of attrition for them there at the end of the year. But it will come down to that last game of the year is what you're expecting and anticipating for Greeneville. But man, they do front load the front half of their schedule with some good non-conference opponents. An old rival in the IMAC in Morristown West, and somebody they added last year was Epperman, will be hungry for them again this year.
I love that they opened this season against Morristown West at Burley Stadium. You know the place is going to be rocking. And then something that they've done the last couple of years is play Upperman. This time it's on the road in Baxter. Very tough place to play. Another perennial power too in 4A. They certainly have a bad taste in their mouth after last year and the way that game finished. And then you got Sevier County, a game that the entire state's probably going to be eyeballing on September 25th. So like you said, a non-conference schedule. It's really tough. And then a region schedule. It continues to get tougher year by year.
You know, this is a Greeneville team that doesn't back away from opponents because it's tough to fill out a schedule. I think the best part is they had so many teams in their region, which they have dominated. And the numbers aren't even remotely funny when you take a look at some of the numbers and the ability to score. However, how does that transpire when you lose a Mr. Football? And you could have had 2, to be honest with you, because, yeah, you lose Caden, but Zayden could have done the exact same things. And those are 2 huge misses along with some other very key defensive aspects for this team. Almost 20 guys lost with graduation. When you're taking away 2 Division 1 kids, that hurts a lot.
Yeah, you lose Mr. Football and you lose a UT football commit. It's gonna hurt. And I think offensively you're gonna see that change hurt the most this year. You're losing 9 of your 11 starters on offense. You're losing 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen, a few of those that went on to play at the next level. A lot of youth going to be new to this year's team, but again, it's not as top heavy as last year's roster. I think you're super talented. You're really deep this year. You'll see a lot of sophomore juniors maybe you haven't heard of before start to make impacts, and there's a lot more mouths to feed, yes, but also a lot more names to call on any given Friday night.
Let's talk a little bit more about the changes. One thing that's not changed in his 7th year, Eddie Spradlin is the head coach. 20th year with Greeneville High School as a coach in some capacity. Will not have, however, his offensive coordinator back. Cody has moved to Greeneville Middle School to be the head coach there. So a little bit of a different role with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, which still, there's still questions just because how is that going to go through the first 2 games of the year when you have such top level opposition?
Yeah, Kane Ricker expecting to be the starter for this team throughout, but still good to see that depth. You've got 3-4 guys that can go out there and spin it, and that's reassuring, I think, if you're a Greeneville football team this year, especially when you got Kane, who's an all-state caliber defensive back. He's going to be playing both ways. He's likely going to be winded. I think it's going to be a new look offense too. You said Coach Timken, the new offense coordinator of this Greeneville club. It's a new look quarterback as well. Kane Ricker, not exactly the passer that Caden Ball was, but it's going to provide just a different look on his feet, and I think schematically with some things that Greeneville offense will show us this year.
Guy who can throw it as well. Parker Quillen is a very good quarterback, and then Cade, the coach's son, Spradlin, also very capable as well. But right now, Kane earning that job out of the preseason. And it's nice to have a good core of running backs. And when you start with Jude in that running backfield, that is a huge add for Greeneville this year.
Yeah, Jude Dyer, Jordan Mills, and Jack Lister, all 3 of them, they're going to be two-way guys. You'll see him at running back, linebacker, and another year where I think you returned all your running backs from a season ago, maybe missing one, but that running back stable, it's going to be talented. It's going to be more experienced than they were a season ago. It's good to lean on that, like you said, especially with an inexperienced quarterback. Kane Ricker might not have the starts under his belt, but it's good to know that you can lean on a trio of running backs behind you.
Well, one guy's Teagan. He's the only one that won't come back.
Teagan, yeah. Half a season,
But that is it.
Yeah.
As far as your wide receiving core is concerned, when you have somebody like Taryn Clarity who's getting the attention that he's getting, what's a nice little safety net out there?
Oh, he's arguably, if not the most athletic player in our coverage umbrella, certainly, but the Northeast Tennessee region as a whole. He's picked up several D1 offers throughout the offseason. You watch this kid play, and you can pinpoint that kid is the most athletic. He is the best player on the field. Super, super talented and just uber athletic. You throw in Zion Neal into the fold, another year at receiver for him. Some guys like Braylon Kidwell, Amir Knight starting to emerge as well. It's going to be a fun group to watch that perimeter. I know you lose Aiden Anderson, but you got a lot of fun athletes surrounding a new quarterback.
One of the keys during a preseason scrimmage earlier this year was the perimeter on the outside, and they proved that they were still very fast there. Will there be time? That is the question. And I think the question mark is the offensive line that lost so much from graduation last year.
Yeah, and you replace all but one starting offensive lineman from a season ago. Now, you take a look at what you missed, and you kind of take a look at that Alcoa game as well, Brian. What was kind of the differentiation in that game? It was the trenches. It was the offensive defensive line battle. So this is a team it's a couple of pieces away from returning and collecting its 5th state championship. I think it's going to start in those trenches. Maybe not this year, might not be the year that we point to that offensive line and say, this is the turning point, this is the year for an offensive line, but maybe you get this young crew in, you get some starts under their belt, and now we're looking up maybe 2-3 years later and saying, we looked at this time and that was the learning curve and the experience that helped them to this point, I guess.
Defensively, when you talk about this team, and I think we're going to talk a lot more about the back end of this team. I think it's probably where we should start. It's guys we've already talked about on the offensive side, but it's guys I think defensively that have to really set the tone. If they're making a lot of tackles, obviously Greeneville's in some problems, unless they're shooting through with some secondary blitzes and such. But this is a back end that is extremely athletic and extremely fast.
I'd say one message to opposing teams, quarterbacks, beware. Taryn Clarity returns 10 pass breakups and 8 interceptions a season ago. I think that was some sort of school record in some capacity. You return Kane Ricker as well, that picked off the 2 best quarterbacks that the Greene Devils faced last season. And you bring back guys like Amir Knight, dudes that are going to factor in at corner as well. I know you lose Aiden to Tennessee. That's a huge, huge loss. You can't account for that. But he was so good last year that he didn't have to make those plays because people weren't throwing to him. I think Taryn might find himself in a similar situation this year.
I think they'll have to move Taryn around just a little bit and maybe get him a little closer to the line of scrimmage to make some plays and be very disruptive, because I think the question is, will that defensive line have the depth? Alcoa exposed it a little bit last year in that game. You got to have some depth there. You got to have some guys to be able to build on, and I know there's plenty in the trenches, but it's inexperience right now.
Yeah, and especially when you lose a guy like Zorian Harris, a region defensive player of the year, a lot of starts under his belt. He's one of those future Patriots at University of the Cumberlands. So again, that trench warfare, it's going to be a little bit, I don't want to say weaker, but less experienced in the season to go. And so it's going to be a test certainly early on when you got a tough run game like Upperman on the road a couple weeks into the season.
A team that's going to be ranked preseason very high, a team that probably after the first couple of weeks still be in that mix in the top half of that. They have earned it. It is their culture, and Eddie Spradlin has continued that culture as well. The one thing missing from his resume is that state title. They chased number 5 this year, and now his son is a little bit older and he's there, and I know that was very special because the previous coach had a son that won a state title with him. I don't know how that works out. But it started basically this year for them, and I think this is a building team for Greeneville.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an exciting year. I think anytime you look at the athletes that they have on this roster, you're going to be excited. They're going to make plays. It's just, can you string together a deep postseason run? Well, we'll see against the new power, I guess, in 4A, Alcoa, as they show no signs, it seems, of slowing up.
Ron and always the guys from WGRV. You can always listen to 99.5 FM, WGRV. They will always have all that information for Greeneville and follow along. Of course, Green Sports Zone will as well. Ron, Pat, and Richard for Greeneville High School football this year. This is part of our Pigskin Preview, the Greeneville High School Greene Devils. I'm Brian Stayton for Matthew Palazzo.
Introducing the Ultra Compact Daikin Fit, a revolutionary HVAC system for ducted homes. It's the perfect fit for zero lot line homes. In fact, the Daikin Fit can be installed almost anywhere. Reimagine your indoor comfort. See the difference. Feel the benefits. Daikin Fit.
Welcome back into Green Sports Zone's Pigskin Preview 2026. I'm Brian Stayton with Matthew Palazzo. The North Greene Huskies. The North Greene Huskies last year under the direction of Eric Tilson made one of their better, I guess you could say, runs of the year. It's not necessarily, or of their career, of their entire careers at North Greene High School. But that was always the point for Coach Tilson. It was get the guys up front ready. And it took a lot of time, through 5 years. And he starts his 6th year, and now it's almost a rebuild for them. But this North Greene team has tasted some success. How does that success build over for a new look North Greene Husky team?
I think Coach Tilson would tell you the exact same thing. It's just that culture that expects to build in 2026. You lose arguably the most talented quarterback in your program's history. After such a historic year, you graduate a third of your team. The nature of 1A football, you losing, 6, 7, 8 guys, you're going to lose about, a third, a fourth of your team. It's the same problem that North Greene is facing this season. I think Coach Tilson has worked so hard throughout the offseason, building that foundation, building that culture. Does it turn the page? Does it get even better here in year 6 for Coach Tilson?
We'll find out. It's a huge region. Anytime that you can throw Hampton into that mix, and again, Hampton's still able to play single A. There's a few varying factors for that. But obviously very strong. They would be good in 6A, to be honest with you, the Hampton Bulldogs. But they're in Region 1 Single A. And for North Greene, last year they finished as the number 4, I guess, mostly were in as far as the look of it. But they were 5-2 in their region. Very competitive region, especially on the top half.
Yeah, you had that 3-way tie for second place, and it was really that 100-plus point game against Cloudland that was their undoing. And I think that was the kind of the breaking point in a lot of games for North Greene. It was the defense. It was the points that they allowed. The offense was fine. The offense was tremendous. It was just giving up those points. It bit them in the rear end against Cloudland. Ended having them slide down to the 4 or eventually the 2 because they would earn that three-way tie and then get the second place. But finishing a game better would just make you feel a bit better if you can knock off a Cloudland or a Cosby, which they did.
It is a team that, for Coach Tilson as well, that has to look for direction and leadership, and that starts at their quarterback position.
Absolutely. And anytime you graduate a guy like Thomas Arnell, was he 3-4-year starter, you're going to have some growing pains certainly that year after. But we saw Jared Swatzel come in for an injured Darnell last season. Jared Swatzel, that's going to be your QB1 moving forward. You do have some depth at that quarterback position though, with Tanner Collins, battling in that offseason. You got Swatzel though, he's a junior now. He's got a start under his belt. He's got some experience. Not as big, not as much of a running threat as Darnell was. But yeah, probably going to be some growing pains anytime a first-year starter takes the keys to an offense.
The Weems brothers last year, not only were they good offensively, they were great defensively and on special teams. They were great in the return game as well. That's gone along with that offensive line, which is what Coach Tilson has done such a good job in building, trying to gain some depth there. He did get some depth in and get some guys some experience on that offensive line. The middle school program is helping to feed that as well. But again, it's a little bit inexperienced, especially with some of the younger Huskies.
Absolutely. And that, I think, is most obvious in the trenches. You see those guys turn over year in and year out. And you're just thinner up front, especially at those smaller schools. You got guys that'll play a couple weeks in fall camp and they'll say, it's not for me. And then that one or two guys that you lose, it's a big hit, especially when you're relying on guys that play both sides of the football.
Talked about a couple of guys at the quarterback position, a couple of guys that we talked about last year, maybe not as much as we should have, but I think Matthew Boyd is the guy that has to be looked at the wide receiver position. And Leon Johnson carried the load last year, about 600 yards rushing. Is a guy that is very, very capable, but I think will be leaned on even more.
Yeah, I think Leon Johnson, by the way, Leonidas Johnson, found out that was his full name a few weeks ago. Pretty cool. But yeah, Leon, he's going to be your bell cow. He's going to be the guy who, deservingly so, requests as much as he will in terms of touches, in terms of yardage. He's going to be the guy you lean on, but it's certainly good to have a guy like a Matthew Boyd, threatened to break out last season, but again, like you said, Weems, a really good receiver. Now he's your wide receiver one. He is your top target. It's really good for Swatzel to have a guy like Matthew Boyd, 6'3" receiver to throw to. But yeah, Leon Johnson, somebody I'm really excited for, not just for his running back play, but also at linebacker. A guy that had over 100 tackles on defense a season ago. Super, super talented two-way guy. And again, if week 1 last year showed us anything, can play against anybody.
Yeah. Obviously, parents were a fan of 300, Leonidas, and the mighty 300. Well, the mighty are up front, and Sean Russell is really the only leader on that offensive line. How can he lead that group this year?
You know, I think anytime you lose a center like Owen Pierce, a multi-year starter, you're going to have to lean on some guys that maybe are not as comfortable making that leadership change. But in talks to Coach Tilson the preseason, that's going to be your guy. Russell has made a ton of changes and steps up in his leadership. And it's a younger Huskies offensive line. But yeah, look to Sean Russell, like you said, to be that guy that's really the vocal commander up front.
It is a team that's got to be physical this year. That is another factor in what Coach Tilson has brought, the weight room. They've got to be stronger. They have some guys that can be very physical, but I think the whole physicality of the Huskies is going to be a big question mark for them.
Yeah, and Coach Tilson has talked about that a lot this season. He didn't talk about it as much last season.
Yeah.
And you lose those guys, especially up front. He has preached physicality. He has even said that he's had guys coming into this program as freshmen. They're deadlifting 500. It's just a stronger crew. They're lifting lead. Tremendous offseason in the weight room per Coach Tilson himself. And that new track program as well for the Huskies. I think this is a team that's going to be more physical and more athletic coming into 2026.
For the final 7 weeks of the year, the Huskies will play their 6 region opponents. The first 3 of the first 4 weeks will be their non-conference opponents, and that is the welcome back to all of the Greene County schools and whom they played last year. Yeah, it is a tough, stacked region, so it only leaves 3 non-conference games, and it's perfect for them to play all of those games in the league. We talked about this with Chuckey-Doak. I think for North Greene to set a great tone this year, they need that week 1 win. They do have the Black Knights at the Tundra.
And you got them at home, which is even better. Definitely circling that week 1 game as one to watch. Again, we'll have it on Greene Sports Zone. A little bit of a letdown last season as a good of a team that you had at North Greene. Still fell on the road to a tough Chuckey-Doak team as well. Now, how does that look this year, week 1? Again, it's always a unique position because you never know what you're going to get in week 1. Doubly so this year for North Greene with a new quarterback at the helm.
West Greene would be the second week, Hancock County, and then South Greene, and then that Hancock County game, obviously a regional game. Their first 4 weeks of the year are kind of a roller coaster, and this team can ill afford to be a roller coaster team.
Absolutely. They have to get off to a tough start, and I think if you start it with 2 county wins against a Chuckey-Doak, against a West Greene, it certainly builds the confidence. It certainly gets the guys excited for the remainder of their schedule. Hancock County, one of the weaker teams on that schedule until you get to Sunbright and Unaka. So a chance there to start 3-0, and that would really get the ball rolling for the remainder of your region schedule.
We'll accept the results as they come as long as we go out and go be prepared. And we have an opportunity to do things well. But each year has those goals that a lot of people take for granted. As we've made the playoffs many years in a row now, those goals are getting harder every single year to accomplish, and it just takes more effort to achieve just the base goals. That's why we don't compare ourselves to last year's team. We're not going to compare ourselves to future teams. We just want to be the best 2026 version that we could possibly be.
The beef is in the middle for the North Greene Huskies as far as their schedule is concerned, looking to rebound and build upon a record-breaking season from a year ago, well, under the direction of Coach Eric Tilson.
Hey folks, it's Gateway Ford in Greeneville. Right now, everyone gets Ford employee pricing. The same deal Ford employees get. No games, no negotiation. Save maximum green in Greeneville today at Gateway Ford on Highway 11 East or at gatewayfordgreeneville.com. Save some green in Greeneville at Gateway Nissan, carrying on a 55-year tradition of doing business your way. Save thousands on Sentra, Rogue, Frontier, and more. Take the short drive to Gateway Nissan in Greeneville or online at gatewaynissangreeneville.com.
Ready for a game changer? Say goodbye to costly lash extensions and fussy false lashes. Merle Norman Cosmetics has launched the formula you've been waiting for, Lash Extension Tubing Mascara. Wrap your lashes in 360-degree tubing technology for your longest, most defined, and separated lashes yet. This buildable formula won't flake, smudge, or transfer. Available in long-wearing rich black and a high-trending rich cocoa brown. Lash Extension Tubing Mascara and other new essentials are available now at Merle Norman Greeneville and Eastgate Shopping Center.
Welcome back into the First Horizon Greene Sports Zone Pigskin Preview for 2026. The South Greene Rebels get ready for 2026, and they will be doing so without one of their best leaders and best players over the last 4 years, and that would be Nash Rader. But they do have another nice running back in the mix. As far as Sean Jones is concerned, the only guy, he's a little long in the tooth, a little salt in the hair, just a little bit down. He's been there for a little while. 100 wins for his career, the only county coach to do that. But it is a South Greene team that, despite their losses, they know that they have been able to replenish with the amount of depth that they have developed over the last few years.
Certainly, and that starts at the running back position for them. Trent Haynes, expecting a big breakout for him, but Trip Neese, arguably, if not the best returner in Greene County this year, certainly expecting another big season, all-state caliber season out of him.
When you lose somebody like Nash, you got to replace him. You got to replace the quarterback. Nash had the ball in his hands for every single play on offense last year and would distribute. Now, does that become a runner or does that become a pocket passer this year?
It's going to be more of a pocket passer look, especially for those accustomed to South Greene football. I know you're used to the dual names of Levi and Luke Myers and, of course, Nash Rader from the last couple of years, but definitely going to be more of a pocket passer type of threat this year with the sophomore at quarterback, Dawson Ripley, shortstop in baseball season here for his first year under center. So going to be more of a aired out type of approach from him. But again, and Coach talked about it. Nash early on in his and Susan for that matter, they were a little bit more pass happy early on in their careers. They developed more as runners. So maybe that happens this year in just his second year on Rebel Hill.
Trip Neese is the focus, obviously, and in that backfield, but you can help him with Trent. And I think those two can be very formidable this season and can be very disruptive in the region.
very, very dangerous indeed. And just all signs point north for that running back room. Question, I think, is can you stay healthy? Tripp and Trenton both going to be guys that are playing two ways, but Trent Haynes especially, just a sophomore, was so excited to watch him play last season. The strides, the development that he's had in just one off season there at South Greene. Super, super excited for that kid and watching him play here in his second season.
I know for Coach Burns, excited to have him on the offensive side because Coach Case on the defensive side, that kid made just about every play defensively, and you add Tripp Neese into that linebacking room. The question's obviously, still though a point of pride is that offensive line for South Greene. New quarterback, you got a good stable of running backs. You're going to have some wide receivers that we're going to talk about, but it is those guys up front. And despite losing three of maybe your most talented offensive linemen, they did develop depth last year.
They absolutely did. And as talented as that group was last season, you remember as Pablo Rosario, Heath Norton, Colton Silvers, two of those three guys were all county selections. Mm-hmm. As talented as they were, Coach Jones was going into the season saying, I'm not sure what we have up front. He wasn't sure of his starting five until week 2. So here we are asking those same questions coming into 2026. Do we have a similar scenario where you might not be very confident, but it's because you have so many guys that you can just plug and play? This is a South Greene program who in years past has just really prided themselves on that run attack, that run approach up front. And it starts with those big uglies, those 5 guys across, and none have been better at developing those guys than South Greene.
On the perimeter, guys like Simon Burns really kind of developed last year. Sean Owenby did for sure. And Angel Sanchez was a very nice surprise, not only on the offensive side, but in the secondary at cornerback. But those are going to be the 3 guys I think that had developed from last year that were guys that we were familiar with and whoever else they developed this year on that wide receiving core.
And it hurts too when you talk about the receiving core and you throw in tight end, losing a guy like Noah Wright to an ACL injury and an already handcuffed perimeter gets even thinner with an injury like that. But it demands more of a guy like Simon Burns, Angel Sanchez, who we were equally high on last season, and then Sean Owenby, who had a breakout season of sorts at DB. I think the defensive backfield is certainly something that you're circling. Can you kind of replicate that success on offense to help a young quarterback?
Well, when you talk about our county schools, you've got to talk about staying healthy.
Well, I mean, it's always exciting at this time of year. You want to try to keep from getting the injury bug early in the season. So just excitement all the way around. You get new faces out there, and you get your scrimmages and see how you're going to line up and how you're going to play, and just getting very, very excited for the season to start.
South Greene, really over the last few years, even Nash Raider was bit by the injury bug. Susong was bit by the injury bug. Can they stay healthy this year?
And that is the question. It's such a high volume position at South Greene. You don't have a quarterback necessarily this year to split carries with you. Now you have Trent Haynes to split that workload, but a guy that's going to be playing both ways. Tripp Neese, expecting a big season out of him. He's already dealt with some dings throughout the offseason. Just keep him at 100% for as long as possible. Again, some of these region games, you only have 3 of them, aren't coming until later. So can you, almost like load management, but not exactly. I know we don't like to use that term, but can you keep him healthy long enough and then ready, poised for a deep postseason run?
Well, just like always, you want to win those rivalry games like always, and then you of course, since we're in the playoffs, you want to get more than one playoff game, and that's what our goal has been for the last few years, and we're just hoping to stick to that this year and try to make a run.
And the schedule necessarily, South Greene's another one of these teams. They are not afraid or shy away from playing anybody, and you're going to see that early with Daniel Boone. But it was the teams that would line up against them last year. I know that Joe Case is trying to address this a lot this year. When they lined up, just ran it right at them. That's where South Greene seemed to be most vulnerable. Marion County exposed him a little bit. Hampton was, or I should say Happy Valley did that a little bit. Happy Valley nixed their entire game plan. Eagleton Academy went to the spread in the first half, and when we went to just the straight run at you, it became a ball game in the second half. And I think those are some of the things they need to correct going into the year.
Yeah, certainly, especially with a heavy hitter like Happy Valley in your region. Those tougher teams in Marion County, even in Polk County, these teams in 2A, they are run-happy outfits. And any time that you have a team that is willing and even ready to run it down your throat, you're going to have to be ready to, I guess, game plan against that on the defensive side of the ball. Like you said, struggled with it at times last season. Can we see that improvement heading into 2026? I think that Happy Valley game, again, is that one game season that a lot of people talk about up in week 10. Going to be big on the road this year. I think you circle that one as did this team improve from a season ago with what you're talking about?
A lot of non-conference games through the first half of the season for South Greene. Morristown East, I think they had them last year. They let one slip away there. Daniel Boone added this year in week 2. Johnson County, going to be a strong team, but they do get them at Rebel Hill. And then they go to North Greene and Chuckey-Doak to wrap up the first half of the season this year with their non-conference schedule. You got to get through that, number one, healthy. You also need to probably get that through that with a winning record, I think, to set up the back half of your schedule.
Yeah, certainly. And when you have North Greene, Chuckey-Doak, West Greene back to back, weeks 4, 5, and 6, you got a chance to win the county cup like they did last season. It's just an interesting part of the schedule. You have that bye week entering your last 3-week stretch, arguably your 3 toughest opponents in Concord Christian, Eagleton, and Happy Valley. So like you said, staying healthy up until that point where your 3 toughest games are there at the end, it's going to be paramount for this Rebel team.
2 of those 3 games also on the road for the South Greene Rebels. One thing we didn't really necessarily talk about, the last 4 years, they've had one of the best kickers and punters really in that region. And again, that's another thing. Special teams play such a huge part, and it has for South Greene over the last few years. Nobody kicks to their returners. Nobody punts to their returners. And if they do, they pay for it. But South Greene has been able to pin guys in because of, punting. It's not there this year, or they haven't developed it yet. And I think that'll be a big question mark for them too.
Yeah, Brant Wilhoit going to be a guy that they're going to miss a lot. Anytime you lose a 4-year starter, a kicker and punter who does everything, you're going to get worse no matter who you come back with in that next season. And special teams, like you said, it's an underrated facet of the game. Wilhoit was, kicking it inside the 20, routinely. And especially when you're talking about opening field position, I think that's really the biggest part of it, especially as a defense who's wanting to, be on the positive end in some long, run drives, run field drives. I think missing part of that kicking game is going to be a bit tougher here in 26.
South Greene Rebels open up the season with Morristown East. They'll be on the road for that contest.
At Marathon Quick Stop Markets, you'll find a company that realizes that our customers are our biggest assets. We are a locally owned company, proud to serve our community. So we do everything with you in mind. We clean and sanitize our stores, provide a well-lit, monitored area to keep you and your family safe. You can always expect a friendly staff and a large selection of products with weekly specials. Stop in at a nearby Marathon Quick Stop Market today.
Welcome back into the First Horizon Green Sports Zone 2026 Pigskin Preview. I'm Brian Stayton. He's Matthew Palazzo. The West Greene Buffaloes, there's a new leader for the Tatanka, if you will, Caleb Slover. And he's a young man who has been here. I say young man. He's a little bit also long in the tooth, if you will, although he doesn't have any hair. But he's a guy that comes to us from Anderson County, played his high school career there, came to Tusculum University and was one of the best quarterbacks in just 2 years at Tusculum College then during the air raid era. He has bounced around as a head coach a few times, but everywhere he has gone, starting with Cott County, he has started some type of an air raid or a very offensive-minded school that has set up some really big numbers. That will be a big challenge this year with him for the West Greene Buffaloes, considering the fact that they lost some experience. And how will his offensive system flow? I think that is a big question for the West Greene Buffaloes this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's going to be a conflict of style, that's to say the least. You couldn't get more 180-degree different than wing tee and flex bone from 2025 to air raid and the style of attack that Coach Slover is going to implement here in 2026. So a lot more up tempo, a lot more passing the football. And so if you're a fan of that, West Greene fans, well, get ready here in 2026.
We'll open up with Cosby, which we'll talk about, but last year winning just one game, on the season. And again, that doesn't necessarily breed success coming into this year, but they do have these young guys that are coming in. Start with the guys that they lost. And for me, it is the meat, the bulk, and that's Centel for me. And Hilton was also huge up front. There's some guys that they're definitely going to miss, especially on that offensive and defensive line.
I think that's where you lose the most of your depth and star power from a season ago. Certainly Centel, one of the best players in all county selection, a two-way star for the Buffaloes last season. And then Peyton Hilton again, a guy who was a tight end, defensive end type of number, and he just did really well for you. Didn't get the touches like he probably should have, but you could tell that kid was just uber talented. He just didn't get as many chances.
I love the way Aiden Thompson approached the season last year as a kid. Hey, I'm just a freshman. I'm not necessarily sure what I'm doing, but I can make up for that in my speed, which has been gifted to me, and your ability to just make plays. And you might as well put your playmaker as a guy who's going to handle the football on offense.
And it's certainly a guy that has had a lot of expectation, I think, early on in his high school career. He looks the part coming into his sophomore campaign. You stay around the locker room, the field house for a number of seconds, you're going to tell, like, there's a certain difference in this kid coming into his sophomore year. He's put on a lot of weight, a lot of muscle in the weight room, just looks a lot more poised, bigger leader, and that certainly gets me excited, especially for an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot more.
Very likely a kid that has been motivated, from a season ago into this year. And other guys that are motivated that will have to step up are in that running back room.
No doubt. And I think they return. You talk about South Greene having a talented two-man tandem. West Greene right there with him. You got not Trent Haynes, but Tristan Banks and Sean Bailey. Sean Bailey, I know it gets kind of lost in the weeds a little bit from how the Buffalo season finished, but Sean Bailey had a really good season last year. Another all-county type of back, and he's going to return here in 2026. You combine that with his play on defense, really circle those two names. Banks and Bailey, they're going to be your two guys, and Banks is going to factor in a little bit at receiver too, but he's going to get some touches as well to get you excited if you're a Buffalo fan.
And I love Kyler Patterson. Here's a kid that when he was a freshman, burst onto the scene, made plays, play after play, and he's going to have to be expected to make those plays. And again, in this system, maybe with the help of a guy that will come from Morristown as well.
And I think, and you and I both were there last season. You saw it. He was getting open. Patterson had the looks downfield. He was, burning defensive backfields left and right. They just couldn't get him the football. And this is a guy that really should have had, 7-8 receptions a game. And he probably finishes with 1 or 2 if we were lucky in a given Friday night. So that's a guy who I'm really excited for, especially with an offense more geared to getting the athletes the ball in space.
Defense, and defense can win you some championships, can keep you in some games, especially when the offense is not flowing. And I think they're a little bit more prepared for that this year, especially up front.
Yeah, and last season it really hurt because last year, more so than this one, I think, was a year of just offensive incapabilities. An offense that averaged less than 12 points per game. They were held to less than 10 points in 7 of their 11 games last season. I think this year you're looking for more improvement on defense, similar to North Greene, similar to Chuckey-Doak. Can you improve at tackling? Something as simple as that in high school football, I think makes a world of change, makes a world of impact. I think you look no further than Caden Archer, a guy that they're really high on, coming in from Morristown East, a transfer. Should play a little bit of running back too, but also a safety on that defense. Maybe might be the one that shores up that tackling problem there in Mossheim.
We're going to be young in the back end, but they've done a really good job of figuring out what we're doing, and Coach Greenley's done a good job of keeping it simple for them and just letting those guys go play. So hopefully they just go out and turn it loose. We want them to play fast and not think a whole lot.
The question is, can they score? And the question is, how will the system move on? Last year was a team that just did not score enough points in a football game to be successful, and they were giving up a ton of points, obviously, on the back end of that. And it was staying in a game in the first half. It was kind of the second half. Now a new scheme, a new system, and Coach Slover comes in, can be very patient, has had that ability to be very patient, but might be the greenest team that he will take over as well. That, to me, is one of the biggest question marks. Don't burn it. Don't get rid of it just because it's not working. How long, though, do they go with a system where they continue to search, they're continuing to look for guys that are going to step up or be a part of whatever this system is going to be and how they do it, and what tweaks, what adjustments do they make going through the year?
Well, I think we're dealing with a very certain or similar question with Huskies football right now, the switching of styles and how long do you hold on to that style. West Greene hopefully not asking themselves that question at the tail end of this season. I hope it works for them. I think it's going to work a lot better than the last couple of years have looked under that offensive scheme. What will this new scheme and system look like? I guess there's only one way to find out. We got to play some games first, but I, for one, am super excited from everything I've seen on film and from the scrimmages. Now, against some less than stellar competition, but I could not be more excited for the future of this Buffaloes team. I think they're going to be the biggest surprise, not only in the region, but maybe the entire part of Northeast Tennessee when it comes to high school football this season.
In order for that surprise to come to fruition, they've got to get through the first half of their season successfully because it sets them up to be successful early.
Yeah, and we talked about it here in the office a little bit. I think this is a team that could start 3-1. And I've thrown that out and people, they're kind of shocked at that, but you got Cosby, North Greene at home to start your season, and you travel to Chuckey-Doak, you travel to Providence Academy. And I know we talk about it all the time. Rivalry game, you throw the record at the window, especially when it comes to Chuckey-Doak and West Greene. I was a part of this rivalry. It just seems like every time those two play, it's a one-possession game either way, regardless if West Greene is 1-9 or if they're 6-4, it's going to be a close game. So those first 4 games of the season, and especially coming off a 1-9 campaign last year, Brian, can they build some confidence moving forward into this Slover regime? I think starting off with a couple wins under your belt would do a great deal before you get into the meat of the schedule.
It's a 4-team region, and they play theirs is scattered a little bit more than South Greene's, and they end with Cumberland Gap. The problem is it is the middle of that schedule, which can be brutal when you consider a state runner-up from a season ago, the regional champion, and a bitter rival in the middle of that, plus an Eagleton Academy team that had figured out their identity last year, and that's probably going to be bad news for a lot of teams this year.
Yeah, it's a tough non-con schedule. You got those 2 heavy hitters from Region 1 3A. You're punching up a weight class, so to speak, and then you throw in an Eagleton Academy, a Providence Academy in the fold. 2 schools that just have a lot of funds going into that program, and they've got a lot of improvement in the couple of years of their program's existence already.
There's some good football teams on there. There's not a week that, we've got a break or a team that we think that we can just go beat. So we're going to be tested every week this year. I think that's going to challenge our growth and our character of what we're trying to do with our football program.
A West Greene Buffalo team under the direction of Caleb Slover look to get their season off to a great start as well as they open August 21st when they host the Cosby Eagles. That has been our 2026 Pigskin Preview for all of Greeneville and Greene County. And again, you can go and follow all of these write-ups on our webpage at greensportszone.com, plus all of our socials with reaction from coaches and players. This has been fun to put together. Yeah. And I hope that, I hope we're right. Maybe it makes us look a little bit better as well. But those are just some of the facts. Those are just some of the numbers, I think, and some of the players and the personnel that teams have coming back. For me, it's listening to Barry Carter in December when he's asking me, hey, Brian, do you know when the first game of the year next year will be? That's the excitement level that he brings, and I know that the excitement level of what high school football brings carries a lot of weight in this town, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I remember it felt like a couple weeks ago, I was writing up on that whiteboard, 68 days away, and now we're all the way within a week until the regular season begins, and I couldn't be more thrilled, couldn't be more ready to get it underway. It's bigger, it's better than ever this season on Greene Sports Zone here for the second year, where we'll be streaming each and every week for these really good matchups, especially a schedule for us, at least broadcast wise, that's going to be front loaded with county and county matchups. Doesn't get much better than that, especially the excitement and the rivalries that goes into it.
So join us all season long from high school football all the way down to maybe some Little League baseball. That's what Greene Sports Zone has been able to bring you. We thank you for being with us. For Matthew Palazzo, I'm Brian Stayton. This has been the 2026 preview through Greene Sports Zone.